Hello, everybody. Welcome on in. Happy Saturday, and whatever time zone you may be in. I'm DnDJordanLea, and I'm coming at you from Be Never Ending. I am joined by two absolutely amazing content creators, amazing TTRPG players, as well as very dear friends of mine, Dimples and Dice, as well as Duval. Why don't we
Yo,
do Why don't we do a quick go around? Y'all can tell everybody where we can find and support all the things you're doing. We'll also do this at the end, but I think this is a really great way to open it up. And let's start with Dimples and Dice.
hey, hello. I am Prince, also known as Dimples and Dice around the internet. That's where you can find me: Twitch, Twitter, Instagram, all that jazz. I'm a TTRPG slash variety streamer. I am in a plethora of games from places like Vancouver by Night, my sister station Rolling These 20s. I am over on the Amphitheater with Duval. And I have been in appearances from everywhere: PAX East, panelists, World of Darkness channel. I've ran games for Roll20Con. I'm a busy man. I'm working on a new campaign coming up soon that you all will be seeing and hearing about. So, yeah, I don't know what else I'm supposed to say. My pronouns are he, him.
Perfect.
And you can
No.
follow me on Twitter as well for all of the info about me.
Thank you, Dimples and Duval.
Duval, what's up, everybody? I actually have a follow-up question for Dimple's intro.
Oh.
So you're saying that you just started a campaign while beyond Witchlight, and you have another campaign that you're getting ready to start. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, just ensuring, because we're just talking about how we're all doing a lot of things.
Yeah.
So we have a problem. Anyway, so my name is Jacob, like do Keep Jacob on the internet, co-founder of the Amphitheater, where we play TTRPGs and video games every week. So I run Eulalia 5e, a Redwall story, which Dimples is in. On Tuesday nights, Wednesdays, I play a bunch of video games, mostly retro right now, Chrono Trigger. I'm also the Dungeon Master for Duval and Dragons, which is my Chrono Trigger 5e D&D campaign bi-weekly on So Many Games Twitch. And the opposite Sundays, including this week, I am Professor Isonoff, our white-robed wizard of abjuration and divination, which is super fun, over on Dragonlance, Dragons of Rebirth. And lastly, and not really, because I'm probably forgetting something if I'm being honest, I'm over on Waffle Maple Syrup's Twitch channel every other Thursday, this past Thursday actually, for our Adventure Path Outcast and Outclass, which is a Strength of a Thousands Adventure Path. So yeah. Oh, and from a charity perspective, I run games for Jasper's Game Day and a bunch of other charities. I'm sure we'll talk about color change and stuff like that as well, both as a player of Chaos and a Dungeon Master of Chaos and incentives and all that stuff, which we'll talk about. So yeah,
Fantastic.
long story longer, good to freaking be here.
Happy to have you both, and special thank you to Be Never Ending for hosting for this fantastic stream. So thank you so much. Please make sure to go check them out on social media and check out their app, because seriously, all three of us are dungeon masters or storytellers, and it is an amazing asset to use for your storytelling, for your building, or even if you just need a little bit of inspiration. I think we all understand burnout, and having that as a resource is fantastic. So definitely recommend it. But without further ado, hi everybody, I'm DnDJordanLea. I do a lot of charity streams on my own channel, and this was, I thought, a topic that I think many of us could kind of touch upon. I think there's a lot of information that we could pass on since we've been doing it, at least in my community. I know I've roped both of you into a couple of these events for the better part of a year. So I think that there's often a misunderstanding of what necessarily goes into a charity stream, whether you're planning it, the whole event, or you're planning a one-shot, whether you're a DM or a player. So I guess kind of branching off and starting back, what got you into charity streaming? Was there a specific cause that you really cared about, that you wanted to help out with, or what brought you into that whole charity streaming world?
I guess I'll start, since it was sort of the first like TTRPG of any kind game that I played in on stream. It was just really serendipitous. And it was very much just like especially at the time, this is in the latter half of 2019 into early 2020, where remember that 10 years ago, and it was very much around like my local Duvalian Jacksonville, Florida community was a bit on the small side from because I was really one of two DMs with several players that were like on a waiting list, and I was like, I want to play, and I was like, there's the big wide world web to play with, right? And so I started to just follow people on Twitter and ask questions and get involved in conversations, and then this thing I know, I'm in 30 discords, and eventually that led
30.
to
That's small beans.
I know that's that's after deleting about 10. So yeah, no doubt. I think Kim Metzgro has like 85 or 89 or something like that. So she's got us all beat. But and really, it was just about meeting like new people and playing D&D and just telling stories. Like, and it just so happened to be for charity. Cool, but like, to be very honest, super selfish. Like, I just wanted to play more games with people initially.
Awesome. Dimples.
All right, I'm going to give you an answer that you'll probably love, Jordan. It was you, to be completely honest, because you were the first person I had charity streamed with.
No way.
Yeah. And the thing was, like, I had watched a bunch of charity streams up to that point, but I'd never been invited to do anything on anyone's channel or anything like that. And I was like, I want to do good in a place where I feel like I can do good. Mm-hmm. And I felt like, you put me in a chair, I can be entertaining. I can get people to want to be a part of this. And you put me in the position to do that. And I was like, so I was way more inclined to do more stuff like that because I felt more confident about it. And so you really opened the door for me on that end.
Oh, yay!
Oh, I'm blushing.
I'm being serious. Like, that's how it shook out.
Well, I think
that's amazing.
I'm very touched, and I'm very honored that I've been able to work with both of you in regards to not only regular streaming but also charity streaming as well. Because it is, I think both of you will agree, it's a completely different beast when it comes to the planning and having that. So having two people that I can for sure rely on because they're so amazing at what they do helps a lot. But I think,
you reverse Uno,
right?
But I think one of the things for me, charity stream, and the whole reason I got into it is, we've talked about before wanting to, even if it's a small thing, whatever money we raise, we're still bringing attention to a specific cause. And I think that's an important thing to remember when you're doing a charity stream. Yes, obviously you want to raise as much money as you can, but that shouldn't be the focus, especially when you're doing it in the TTRPG space. The focus should be all of your players, your DMs, your moderators, everybody having fun. And you're also signal boosting, however much you raise, this cause. I know for my channel, it's been Color of Change has been the main thing, just because there's been a lot of unfortunate things that have been happening and continue to happen. So the fact that we can cause and help out an amazing organization that's helping to combat that, I think is really, really fantastic. What do you think are, actually, no, I'll ask this question instead. From a charity streaming aspect, would you rather be the DM or would you rather be the player?
That's a really good question. I think, especially now that I definitely have been in the double digits on both sides of the table, and I definitely love being in the DM seat more because I cannot tell you how many times, and like especially since like we've all like played in charity streams, like we know the chaos is coming. We just don't know when or where or what, right? So I remember a time very specifically where you, Jordan, you were running production for the charity game that I was running. And we were both, because we're in Zoom, and then so essentially how it works is when a donation comes in, and we'll get into this, I'm sure, in a minute, but like Jordan will tell me like what it is. And so there's a moment of like, all right, how do I sew this? How do I continue to knit this like thing that I'm knitting, and then add in this bottle of chaos, and where do I want it to explode? And like having that like maybe like 5 seconds, not that you have to make a decision like really quickly, but like I'm always like, and that's something that I've learned as well, just in chaos and like the improvisational aspect of DMing, which is something I think I wasn't great at before I started running charity games, because you just like, because don't write like 2 paragraphs and then just play. Like that really is what it comes down to, at least in my experience, because it's like, okay, cool. In the case of the game that Dimples and Jordan were in, remember that heist?
Yeah.
What heist?
The heist that never happened.
Yeah,
The heist that never happened. We never literally got out of the starting block. And yet it's still one of my favorite games I've ever run, because like in this is sort of outside of the scope of the question now, but it like the whole lesson around like no plan survives the players. Then add in an outside godlike entity that's just like, and now there's a dragon. Go.
Yeah, that's one of the things about charity games is that you don't know what people are going to donate to. So like some of the stuff you put down for incentives could literally never get brought up.
Yep.
And then other times they could all get brought up. And you got to be ready for that. I think on my end, I like both pretty much equally, to be honest with you, because when I'm a player, I am a very enabling type of player. I want other people to be a part of all of the chaos. And so even if you're my little wallflower player who's like, okay, maybe this is a lot for me, and unless you're intentionally like telling me, no, I don't want to be a part of things, I'm going to be like, here's a little boosty boost. Let's all get into the fire together. Oh, that door that looks like it might be cursed and it has a dragon's face on it and is spitting acid. Let's lockpick it and see what happens.
Play this video game, nothing bad will happen, right? Like,
because I think in charity games I think the more engaged in the chaos the players are, the more the chat and the people donating are as well. Like the snowball just gets bigger as it rolls down the hill, sort of thing. So I like to do both. Like I've actually found in a few of the charity games that I've been in, I haven't had to do a whole lot as the team.
No.
Yeah.
Like I'm like, here's a piece that the chat has decided that y'all should have from this incentive. Go. And then all hell breaks loose.
It's very interesting you bring that up. I definitely agree. I like to be both the DM and the player in those instances, because I think you both know when it comes to charity streams, I'm way more chaotically inclined than I am for a normal campaign. Because with a TTRPG like charity stream, it's just a one shot. So I will only have to deal with those consequences within that one shot. I am not going to have to deal with that perhaps in a campaign, unless you're playing with Duval, who everything is canon. So
yeah,
we are all connected in the circle of Duval.
But it's really interesting, and I love that I think the donations as incentives can honestly. And that's one thing as a DM, whether you're beginning or not, to keep in mind, because that can change the whole aspect of your game. From the heist to, I had a bunch of players had to figure out why a bunch of people were disappearing in a town. And someone donated, I remember clearly, for a scarecrow to go and give a hug to a player. And the player said no. And then immediately someone was like, okay, we got to make the scarecrow the big bad for the one shot. So during our 15-minute break, because we always take breaks during these one shots,
Sure.
I quickly had to rewrite the rest of like, okay, he's the big bad. All right, we're going to shape this like he's the headless horseman. And all he wanted was a hug.
Yeah.
And they ended up
I remember watching this.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too. I remember. Yeah. Yeah, I remember this.
Dragon Gem was in that game. And it was amazing. And honestly, like, it was one of those moments of like, I was so happy because I think having those donations, having everyone's energy, because everybody was kind of vibing with it and really like between chat and the players themselves, I think it made the overall experience even better. So you have to be kind of open when you are DMing these events or as a player to the fact that ridiculous things are going to happen. But
Right.
The key thing too is to also make sure, and I know we've talked about this before too, you have those safety tools in place. You have that trust between your DMs or your other players to, if you need to be like, hey, no, too far, too chaotic, take it back a little bit as well. What would be, because I know that both of you have very different but also very fantastic DM and storytelling vibes. Which do you prefer to kind of do? More of a serious vibe for a charity stream or more funny, ridiculous? I mean, ridiculous can kind of go into both. I'm remembering the vampire game that Dimples did for our charity. But
I was thinking about that this morning. Keanu Reeves!
I mean, but which do you kind of feel like you're more inclined to do? More of the serious type with aspects of that ridiculousness or pure chaotic ridiculousness?
I think no matter what I try to do, it always goes into pure chaotic ridiculousness. So I think I just give off that vibe. Because honestly, the vampire one was semi-serious from a storytelling topic. Like
Okay.
it was like a whole like rescue thing, and it just went into something else.
Yes,
So like
it was D20 was donating for Nicolas Cage and
It's always D20. Let's be
it's
honest.
always D20
and it was great. And it turned into like a slapstick comedy thing, and I just embraced all of that. Like for me, I am just here to facilitate if I am running a game.
Sure.
Whatever vibe the players turn the game into or the donations turn the game into, I'm ready for it.
Yeah.
I don't know if I was the first game I ever ran, but I was ready for it by the time I got to my latest ones.
Yeah.
Because you have to be able to do that, especially in a one shot. You don't know what's going to happen really with the
Right.
players. And sometimes it might even be with players you've never played with before.
Right.
And so you got to be ready for like whatever different vibes happen. And I'm like, for me, I don't really care personally. Like it could be whichever way the players want to take it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. Because especially since you don't really know the table chemistry either. Like I think a lot of us, not to speak for anybody, but have been very fortunate to like around like how like this table is really good. Damn, all right, like. Okay, like maybe we should do some more of this or a part 2 or whatnot and stuff, right? Which is interesting because like then you can have like charity games tie into other charity games, right? Which is pretty wild. And I remember in my like the first charity game that I ran, I like super over prepared and like I even tied in the setting and the story of the one shot directly into the based off of like the charity, because it was I forgot the name of the charity, unfortunately, but this was like 2 years ago. But it was around like hunger, and so and obviously like I'm running I have a Chrono Trigger based world, so I sort of did the, if you play Chrono Trigger 2300 AD, like you can sleep and get all healed up, but you're still hungry, and so I was like, this is like perfect for that, right? And then proceeded to blow up in the best way, of course, because incentives. And so I was just like, how do I put a dragon in 2300 AD and I have 5 minutes to do it? Please role play. I'll be right back. But now it's just like dragon. but I also think the like one thing that I would kind of let folks know about when they're building out these incentives is think about it stylistically. Yep. So in the case of my incentives, I've had the same incentives. And the only thing that changes is really the level of magical items, because that depends on the level of the characters. But they're from anywhere from about $5 to $500. And to Dimple's point, you'll have a game where you'll raise a bunch of money and it's all $20 this and natural 20s this, or you'll have 3 deck of many things, pulls, and an ancient red dragon. Like they're like, and so this person will remain nameless, but I think it's a afterwards funny story where they had a dragon in their incentives, and so I was just like, don't mind if I do. Here you are. Here's this name, and they straight up bricked, like just like you just saw like their like soul leave their body. Like I was like, I'm so sorry. But you put it in there, so I had to do it. And it was like this, like, don't get me wrong, it was a super fun story, but like it was a classic example of like oh, I'm gonna have to throw this away now. I wasn't ready.
No, I normally I'm an organizer when it comes to a lot of the charity streams, and obviously I'm in them too. But that's one thing that I definitely see kind of across the board, and I have to sometimes, that's why we have the DMs room whenever we do these events, to kind of pep talk, because I feel like and I know each of us wants to kind of bring the best possible game to our players to help out the cause. Sometimes that mentality comes into the space of, oh, I need to be better, I need to raise this amount of money for the game. And I think it's important to remember to just get out of that mindset, because you're going to literally get in your own way when it comes to that. Just focus on having fun, and the rest will come in. The donations will come in. Your players, as long as they're having fun, it's a success. And that's one thing that I know that each of you kind of say in your own spaces too, of, okay, even if it's just $1 raise, that's $1 more than what was there previous. So I 100%. Think it's really important when you are doing these charity streams, regardless if you are planning them or if you're being asked to play in one or, be a DM or storyteller on one. It's not a competition. Everybody is doing their own style and finding their own kind of unique path when it comes to it, and to have fun. And literally the rest will follow, and you're going to learn a lot along the way. One thing I wanted to go back upon too, because you did actually bring up my next point that I wanted to talk about, incentives and preparation. Both of you run some long-term campaigns as well. Do you find that when you are preparing for, let's say, your normal campaign versus a one-shot, that you're preparing things a little bit differently or similarly?
I've actually found that, and I think like in my sort of like, I think growth as a storyteller and as a dungeon master, like my prep has in general shrank. Sure. Whereas like when I started, it was like I'm planning for a 3.5 or 4 hour game. My prep is at least that much. When like I think something that many DMs say is like maybe trying to make it like half of that, right? Mm-hmm. And now it's like, all right, and something that me and Dimples have talked about is we're both prep wise, we're pretty alike. Like we're very bullet points and like kind of fill in the gaps with, because it's a collaborative storytelling, right? Like you're not telling the story yourself. So like, and especially when, okay, we're all going to go to this town. No, we're not. Like, phew, we're off to here. Right. And it's like, cool, I'm literally building this town on the fly. What does it look like? But what, like there is a lot of power in the fact that as a DM, and that's not to say that what you say goes, but what you say is canon. Mm-hmm. What does this thing look like? No one can counteract like the smell of something or the look or the scar that's on this person's face. And so I'm always thinking about, which is so funny because as you both know, I like there's no filter between here and here.
No.
And so it like really like shocking breaking news. What? Duval just said stuff and yeah. And so now like my campaigns are pretty bullet pointed and sort of pointing things and tying threads together. But I'm always thinking about it, like even like throughout the week, like just because like that's just how my brain works. But then like only really like 30 minutes before call time am I really just like zoned, locked in, sure. Right? And then with charity games, like, which is always so funny because everyone's like, what level are we going to be? And I'm like, this game isn't a month from now. What do you go away? Don't you have other things to do? But typically, like, and I wasn't joking. Like, I like really like, here's a setting, here's where you are, here's what you might do, here's the opening monologue, go.
Sure.
And that's even sometimes too much, as we found out with the heist.
Yeah.
But to be fair. Oh, sorry. One final thing. But to be fair, the heist was I wrote as a 3-shot like a year before that.
Sure.
So that was sort of the exception to the rule. But for the most part, like it's with like for example my Jasper's Game Day game, my first Jasper's Game Day game. It was like we're ending at a Kraken fight, and we're starting with a bunch of Sahagan attacking their beach vacation resort. Let's fill in the middle. I don't know what the hell is going to happen. I don't even know how I literally didn't even know how we're going to get to the island that the Kraken was until I was like, some weird necklace that Sahagan has makes sense because someone was like, I want to search the Sahagan corpses. Cool. 21 investigation check. There's a necklace now. And then that ties into this. And then, how do I get there? Does someone have a boat here? Cool. Who is it? Bang. And like, that's just the line of questioning that I had in my head. And that completed the narrative to get us to where we needed to go.
Sure. Dimple.
Yeah. So if it's a long-term campaign I'm running, I do a lot of heavy lifting up front. Sure. Like I might spend, a full work week working on something. You might get that 40 hours a week of me putting all of the things together to basically build the world, right? Like build the world, build some NPCs, some logical things that'll potentially happen. And then after that, I try not to spend more than an hour prepping anything else. That's the way I do it. And for charity games, I'm very much like like Jacob just said, he's like, people are asking me questions about this. I'm like, y'all are thinking way more about this than I am. Here, make a character at this level. That's it. That's all you have to do.
All you have to do.
I don't need backstory. I don't need anything else. You want to have some like super special item? Have at it. You can have a legendary sword. I don't care.
Don't care. It's so funny you see your backstory because I've literally had that happen. Or a player's like, "Here's my backstory," and I was just like, "Oh, honey," like it just.
I am not. I will read over it because I care about you.
Sure.
No doubt.
But as far as like where this is going in the game,
I'm feeling very silly sending you my Vampire the Masquerade backstory now.
And I read all of it. I'm not gonna lie.
Right.
I read the whole thing because I was like, I care. But like, is this going to come into play in the game?
No.
Nope.
Like, I'm not even gonna get your
this is all for you. This is for you.
Yeah. Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Because I'm just like because like Jacob said earlier, like whatever you plan for is going to get exploded. Sure. It just does.
No doubt.
Like, and the times that I've spent the most time prepping are the times that I've regretted the most.
Yeah.
Because
100%.
I was like, all of this time that I spent, I could have been doing anything else and it would have been worth more of my time
Yeah.
because none of this ended up mattering.
Not at all.
And I tried to like, so now I have to tell my brain to scale that back, bruh.
Yeah.
Scale that back because you're not going to need all of this because most of it is just going to be improv because it's going to be logical inferences based on dice rolls and where things could potentially go next. Like you said with the necklace thing. So you're like, they got a necklace. They have to go somewhere to investigate this. So now you have to make up the logic. Where do they go in the world that makes from this?
Yeah.
Like, you know, I run my games in Philly. I'm like, well, one of my games, like the one I did for Roll20Con was like, well, they have to escape. What are their logical escape routes out of the city? And I was like, so there's only so many things you can do to get out of here. You can go to the river, you can go to the airport, you can drive to Jersey, and those are probably the closest places you can get to. Like, that's it. So what are you gonna do?
Sure.
Right.
No.
And that's the way I think of things. Like, that's it. Like, that's all there is to it.
Right. Pick a road.
No, I definitely, I agree with that completely. When, and again, I can speak to both the organizing aspect of it because when you're doing these charity events, you do not just throw it together. you do not if you want it to be a success in the fact of everyone having fun and everyone feeling prepared. So like for me, we do charity events 3 times a year. We do February usually. Next one's going to be happening in June or July. I'm still figuring out the timing, and then November. But I'm getting out those questionnaires. If we have an event happening in June, let's say, those questionnaires are going out, let's see, April. It's going out in April to get everybody interested in. Then I have to going towards what you were talking about, Duval, with pairing of the groups and looking at, okay, who's going to be a good fit with this group? Who do I think is going to be complementing each other, creating a balance when doing that? Who's going to like the subject matter that's going to be explored in this one shot? Getting all of that together, getting everybody into Discord rooms or whatever you may be using, getting the Tiltify set up, making sure that DMs have resources, that my mods have resources, that my players have resources. And then checking in with my DMs that, hey, everything's good, right? You got a story, your players are responding to.
Story? No.
Even just an outline, you know.
Yeah.
Just because that's how I run my games. Literally, I have a legal pad next to me with a really, really, really rough outline of what we're going to cover for today. And then I have backup things in mind should I see that like donations aren't coming in and maybe I need to prod to, you know, maybe get some of those donations coming in based upon that. But I agree with you too. I'm also planning a long-term campaign. The amount of work that goes into that, completely different than preparing as a player or as a DM for these events. But I still think at the same time, though, there is the same amount of care that comes across for both. You're still putting 100% in. It's just manifesting in a different way.
I think really to your point, Jordan, part of the reason I've thought about the way I do running games for charity is because, like, if I'm ever in the position of organizing things, that should be where my mental energy is going.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Because, like, I'm very good at making stuff up on the fly. Mm-hmm. I know that's a skill that I have. So I lean on that for my games. But the other stuff, like organizing people or getting stuff done or marketing the thing, setting up the Tiltify, all of that takes a lot more brain energy for me because I am not a super organized person. So I have to put in extra work to do those things.
Can't improv around that.
Right. No. And so, like, instead of like trying to like do all of that and shift it over to how do I make this game like with all these different story points and NPCs and no, I don't need to do all that. I can make that stuff up, spend that time on something that like I actually have to work at.
Sure.
Yeah. I want to bring it back around to Jordan, your point around sort of making sure that like there's a good fit between players and DMs and stuff like that. For those of you that don't know, and I'm going to say it till like for like another 60 years, the reason why the cast, if you watch Duval and Dragons, is so good, it's Jordan's fault. Jordan actually put together the cast of the One Shot, which was the first game that I ran on Twitch. And I was like, holy shit, like, and these are people I, at that point, with the exception of Maddie, I had never met before.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, this is good shit. And now here we are, like, in July will be 2 years. So yeah, you never know. You never know.
One thing too, and I do want to touch upon, because I think Doug brings an interesting point up with talking about accent donations. That is one that gets
I hate them. I hate them so much.
Yeah, but so one thing that I will preface with, because unfortunately accents can kind of skirt the line of being disrespectful. So that's why as a DM, and I've seen the both of you do it, so that's why I'm very comfortable saying, we always give the option to the players of, hey, if you would like to do this accent, great. If not, you can do something else instead, and that will count as the donation. You know, that can be a lot of fun, but for me, like, I'm French, but I can't do a French accent. Don't make me do it.
That's it. That's all I got.
Don't make me do it.
That's as good as it gets.
But having that, and that's what I think is important too, because I know too, this has popped up for both of your games at points where people will be like, hey, I would love to donate to have this happen. How much can I give to make it happen? Because I know I've messaged the both of you and been like, hey, so-and-so is saying they want to have, you know, I can say the Kool-Aid Man come on into our game.
Yeah, sure.
What can we do to, or if you're not a fan of this idea, we can nix it completely and move on. But I think it's very important, whether you are, when you're organizing these kind of things, to have that communication with the players, but also with the DMs too, because listen, we all love chaos, but you don't want to break their games completely.
Yeah. Like, I don't think the Kool-Aid Man would necessarily, if someone wanted that in one of my vampire games, I'd have to nix that.
Sure.
Yeah, that's fair.
As much as I think that's a cool idea, that doesn't really fit. Maybe we could have a mummy, walk through a wall.
Yeah,
Kool-Aid Man.
Right, like an animated GIF of a Kool-Aid Man, like, or a meme, like if inside
somebody busts through a wall and there's a giant projector playing a Kool-Aid commercial. Like that's what you can get from me.
Yeah, but that sort of enumerates a point that I found, like, that I kind of found by accident, because I forgot his name, but he was a really good GM. I was playing in a game for the Creators Assemble, and with like Josh Simons and a few other folks, and like we had like a pretty like extensive list of incentives, but it wasn't really like there's a few seasonings of donations and like things were fine, and then the DM was just like $20 and like SpongeBob SquarePants pops in or like something like that, and I was just like, in my brain, I'll never forget, my brain immediately was like, you can do that? Like, with the incentives, like, I'm like, but it's your game, do whatever the hell you want, like, right? And like, oh, you roll a natural one, somebody give $20 really fast, and you get advantage or something like that, right? And so you can really like play with it, and like in a way that I didn't like think about like really ever until that moment. So like I'll never forget that. So yeah, go ahead.
I think making incentives up is the same as like making anything else up in the game if you're running them.
Sure.
Yeah,
I don't necessarily feel as I'm not the biggest fan of people being like, if I donate this, can I make X happen?
Sure.
And
little outside,
it's not necessarily bad. It just that actually takes me as a DM more out of the game, because I have to figure out how to make this thing work. When I have a scope of incentives, like I know how to, I have at least a general sort of idea in my mind how to make these things work, but those throw me off, and because I have to figure out how to make it work, what it's worth, and how to put it in the game to make it like the players feel good about it too. So it's not necessarily a bad thing. I'm not saying people never do this or something like that, but do keep in mind to keep it thematic, I suppose.
100%.
No doubt.
And I like like Jacob said just a little bit ago, like, yeah, if it doesn't feel like what you have already is grooving, make more stuff up.
Mm-hmm.
Like $50 and I'll make a dragon made of grape jelly, and it is basically like a mimic that people can get stuck into, and it spits peanut butter at people, and like,
yeah,
why not?
Exactly, why not? Why not? That's what's really fun about like, because I sort of utilize the whole like these adventures in my homebrew world are canon because it's also a great lore cheat for me. Because like typically, because I'm a big fan of like, you know, there are consequences to your actions, positively, negatively, or neutrally, right? And that the world continues to turn, right? But in many situations, when you're prepping, you're very focused on what's happening around the players and not what's happening the third city down from 7,000 miles away.
For sure.
But like in the adventure that I was talking about with the Kraken, like that was my first time because they'd known about this continent named Tanamiana, but I hadn't written anything for it other than like it's based off of Key West and there's key lime pie and roosters everywhere, which if you've been to Key West, you know exactly what the hell I'm talking about. But and then it's like then I added in different things and like this resort and for that one shot, and now it's just ready for me to use whenever they get there. Sure. So it's also another way to sort of build some things that also gets buy-in from the audience because they know that because let's be honest, who doesn't want like, oh, we're gonna blow up your world? Cool.
Wonderful.
And yeah, so it's been very successful. However, I will warn you. So we talked a little bit earlier about like we've done a lot of do stuff. Sure. And I don't think this is a don't do, but this is a be careful what you wish for.
Yes.
Which was I was like, you know what? Let's have a charity game in canon to our campaign with the deck of many things.
Mm-hmm.
So what had happened is that
you go learn today.
Oh boy, did I learn! Especially when your player draws Donjon.
Oh.
Which is this guy? Which, if you don't know, makes him go away into elsewhere in prison somewhere.
I've had that happen.
Oh yeah.
I was gonna say this just sounds familiar to somebody at the table.
So what was really fun though was there was a really like easy thematic piece of the pie to do this with because they had already made an enemy of this. What they didn't know was what they thought was their warlock's party member's patron that left the party, but he was also a pit fiend. And he was really interested in this character before he drew this card. So I was like, right on the fly, I was like, oh, this is good. Like now we're going to hell. And so all the things that I wrote, you guys hang out here, all these plot threads. We'll be back in like 6 sessions. I don't know, whatever. Right. Then, because I kind of play with it a little bit because Donjon typically, I think you're supposed to be like incapacitated or whatever. That might be Void actually. But then I had an interaction between his character and the pit fiend of like, finally, I'm so glad to see you. Like, and all while this is happening, the person that donated for the Deck of Many Things cards is like, I could fix this. Donates a Amulet of the Plains, and then he plane shifts back. And I was just like, okay. What the fuck just happened? Right, exactly. Right? And I was like, what? But what's great is I've got a plot thread for that just dangling.
Yep.
Ready. What's he gonna do now? He just had him. What happens next? Like, what does he do now?
Mm-hmm.
And also like his warlock patron's like essentially an angel named Dave. So there's a lot of Dave's not here, man. It's like, so sorry, bro. Like I thought these cards were really cool. My bad. I hope it was a good time. It's like, I was in hell. What are you talking about? Anyway.
No, I definitely with incentives they can just make the game so wonderful. When it comes to preparing for my games, whether I'm DMing or helping to organize. One thing that I'm always looking for is, I agree, Dimple's going with the theme, so it's not too out there. But one thing that I've also come across is, and I know I've talked to each of you about this, do you think that there are instances, kind of like when you're preparing for sessions, that you can have either too many incentives or too few?
Yes, but I think it's really easy to rectify either way.
Okay.
Too many is a harder problem to deal with, I think, because you want the incentives to feel impactful. Mm-hmm. Because if someone's donating, you want the incentives to feel impactful. So if there's a whole bunch of different things, I think if there's too many, people are trying to figure out how to make them feel impactful. And some of them can feel a little superfluous. Like, here is an advantage for a player. Here is 2 advantages for a player. Like, just stick to one thing. Group advantages, sure, whatever. But like, try not to spread the same sort of things out too much.
Sure.
And then when there's too few, I think that makes it a little bit more of a cognitive load on the person running the game, because you have to pay attention to that.
Yeah.
Because if the incentives aren't coming in, you need to change things up.
Yep.
And maybe it could be people are just spent. That is a thing that you also have to keep in mind, because I'm very cognizant of the space that we're in, especially when you're doing charity streams. Mm-hmm. And there can be a lot of charities going on at the same time,
sure.
Especially after tragedies. Unfortunately, that is the case. But a lot of people could be running stuff for the same charity at the same time. And there's only so much money that people have in their pockets, especially when you have the same sort of communities. Yep. Like, me and Jordan have overlap in our channels for sure. We absolutely do. Like, I don't know the percentage, but I would say 50% would not be that surprising, right?
That would not be shocking. Yeah.
So if half of the people that come to my channel just came from Jordan's channel where Jordan ran a charity stream, I have to be cognizant of that, of what kind of charity I may be able to get in.
Sure.
So maybe I need to change up the way I market my charity, maybe a different charity entirely. There's a whole bunch of things that go into play. Time of the month matters. Like, you have to keep all of these things spinning in your head. Sure. So, and I know this is all about donations and incentives, but all of those things play into it. So that's why I'm saying the impactfulness of the incentives really matters. You want them to feel, you want the person who donated something to feel like they did something to change the game, to keep them engaged.
Sure.
Right.
I completely agree with that. That's why I know many of us who do the charity stream circuit, we only plan for, like, for me, it's a TTRPG weekend that happens once every few months. And I space it out so it's not during the holidays. It's not happening during most of the time other charities are kind of happening. And it's a one and done. And that's one thing to be mindful of, because so much of the online spaces, the communities overlap, whether it just be between the 3 of us, or like, I see Dragon Gem, I see Fortnerd.com here in chat as well. So there is overlap that's going to happen, whether you're an active speaker in the chat or you're a lurker. So you don't want to drain your community dry, and you don't want to come across either, because I've seen this happen with charity streams, as kind of desperate to hit that goal. That's why I always operate with, okay, I'll set a goal. If we hit it, amazing. If we don't, we still had fun and we raised this amount of money. Most of the time, my community is like, haha, that's funny. We're going to blow it out of the water. But it's not
that goes cute. We beat it by like 5x. Okay, bye.
But that's not necessarily something that's not the point, and that's not something that I want to count on either. We always say, and I've heard the 2 of you say it as well, of, it's never expected, it's always appreciated. And there are ways that you can give to these organizations without it being a monetary value. You can give by dropping a follow to the channel, by retweeting, by hosting it. A single retweet can go a long way because you are then sending it into the Twitterverse. So that's one thing I would caution anybody that's doing these charity streams and stuff is, yes, raising money is a huge aspect of it, but having fun, bringing attention to the cause, and not focus on hitting those milestones every single game, because that's going to feed in, because then your DMs are going to feel it, your players are going to feel it as well as your community. Your chat's going to pick up on that. I do want to jump to a question that popped up in chat that caught my eye, and it was from Doug, asking, is your DM prep different for a charity game with a group of players you know versus players you haven't rolled dice with?
Not really. Yeah, I think we kind of answered it too.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah,
but,
to say it in case someone's watching this on video.
Yeah.
No, I run games that are basically high engagement all the time. So I'm constantly trying to get players involved. And so that works for players that I play with regularly and players I don't. Because in charity one-shots, I find, maybe I'm lucky, because that could be it. I've had very engaged tables. Yeah, but as long as you are trying to give that same energy to the players, that they respond well to it, and then it comes back across stream. So it doesn't really matter if they've never played with you, as long as you're respectful of everybody at the table, like you put proper safety tools in place. Go at it, have fun. Like everything that's within bounds is within bounds, and so play with that. And I've never had any problems with players that I haven't and players that I have.
Yeah, and I 150% agree. Like the only thing I'll add to that is like the benefit of being an extrovert is when when someone hasn't talked in 10 minutes, you know exactly. You know it. So like both, and this is both as a player and as a GM. So like I always try to be really careful because I don't want to like spotlight who's your mother. But that's something that I think fortunately we're really good at. I'd argue that's all three of us. And so it doesn't really matter much. I think if it's someone that I don't know, I'll lean in and sort of double down on safety tools and just making sure, because like it's something I've said a million times, but I think it's amazing to me because without like beginning to play online, I would not even know safety tools existed. Same. Not at all. Yep. And like to the point where like my at-home game, once things started picking back up, after everyone got vaccinated and stuff, everyone's like, "What's this X card? What's this? What's this? what is this?" And to be honest, there was like a little bit of like, "Oh, we don't need that," and I was like, "But you don't know, man.
Exactly.
You don't know." Like I get where they're coming from, but like it just because you've never been comfortable in the 2 or 3 years. Uncomfortable in the 2 or 3 years we've been playing doesn't mean that we won't broach a subject that does. Sure. Or even the fact that like these are my lines and veils listed, and like, but then like something happens, and then it upsets you or makes you uncomfortable. We are human beings, so like let's just remember to make sure that we take care of each other, right? Because like we're trying to have a good time after all, right? Like to your point, Jordan, like the monetary aspect of it is like almost extra credit, almost, it's about having a good time, and then the extension of that is like your chat having a good time, and then the extension of that is, oh my god, look at the dollar bills, y'all. That's it. And the one thing I'll tie back to inside this conversation is when in doubt, Wild Magic Surge is your bread and butter. Yep Like
100%.
I will, because Jordan knows this, because like there was someone that was decidedly against them, and I was just like, maybe just kind of poke that bear a little bit, just see what happens. And it worked, and it was like, and the game, like in my opinion, like went from here to here, just because of the chaos, right? And so I'm amazed at what a simple 1 through 100 table can do to a game.
I literally have like 5 different Wild Magic.
And there's so many of them, right?
So,
right,
I will pick a random one for a game that I'm running, and I'm like, okay, this is the one we're going with this time. Yeah. So in case you think that 42 that you get, or think it's 42 or something like that, turn into a potted plant.
Yep.
Not this game, baby. Not this game.
Not this one. You thought wrong. Yeah, 41 and 42. But like as Matt said, dual potted plants, which like the mathematical anomaly that was.
I brought that up for that particular reason.
Yeah, of course.
That was ridiculous.
3 in 1 game.
Yeah, 3 in 1 game. There was a lot of shenanigans in that game.
I love that. I love that game so much. I'm so proud of that game.
One thing, and we're going to do a quick rapid fire just because, unfortunately, we are getting close to the end of our time here, unfortunately.
We talk a lot? What?
Us? No.
Well, it's us, but also this topic, there is so much to unpack, and I feel like we're just now starting to really get into it a little bit more. So, who knows? Maybe there'll be a part 2. But so rapid fire for the both of you, real quick. If you could go back and talk to yourselves at the beginning of your charity streaming career as DMs or as players, what would be some kind of advice that you would give?
Oh, for me, don't look at the viewer numbers, because I learned that when I ended up on front page running a game, and I looked, and then it kind of threw my mind off for a little bit, and I had to like come back out of that mindset after a break. But that got me, because seeing 15,000 people watching you is a lot.
Yes. Yeah, that's almost a stadium. Like it's like when you quantify, you're just like, I don't understand how the world works. For me, it's to if I went back in time, it would absolutely be chill. Don't take it too seriously. Like, you have way bigger expectations yourself about you. Actually, I could argue this about myself for really much any reason. Like, your expectations, and you're your own worst critic. Just have a good time.
Yep.
I definitely agree
100%.
with both of those, having also been on front page, but also having several of our DMs on front page and having to warn everybody,
Bill.
do not post
Don't
anywhere.
say anything.
Because the last thing you want to do is send any sort of anxiety. Listen, this is a whole new world in terms of streaming, but also now adding a charity game, but also now you're doing TTRPGs. So the idea that, okay, all of a sudden there could be 20,000 people watching you is a little bit terrifying. It's terrifying for some. I still get nervous every once in a while when I see, there's like 20 to however many in my chat. So, if you don't need to see the viewer count, I have it turned off most of the time when I'm doing those streams. And I definitely agree with you too, Duval, to, chill, not have so much control. It's going to be good. Just taking a moment. And if you get overwhelmed, just take a second. You can always take a break. Find a thematic moment to just kind of center yourself again. Your players are here to have fun, and you can also rely upon your players to help bridge the gap if you're having any sort of trouble. So that is definitely some things to touch upon. Unfortunately, we are at the end of time, but before I turn it over to our amazing guests to shout out where they can be found and all the fantastic things that they're doing, one thing I wanted to ask the both of you to chat about real quick is your favorite moment that happened in a charity stream. And I'll turn it over to Dimples first. Or no, actually, no, Dimples, you've been going first. I'm going to make Duval go first on this one.
Totally cool. The dual pod plants is definitely got to get an honorable mention, because it's just like the mathematical anomaly of that was amazing. I think especially since Robo's here, him turning into a dolphin.
I was going to say the same thing.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it.
I'll never get over that.
That is the bar. Like, there's no doubt about it in my mind. And so, like, so when we were running, when I was running Oops All Druids a little bit ago, and like I was like waiting for him to wild shape, and I was like, is he gonna do the, because he was turning into a earth elemental, and I'm like, are you gonna turn to the rock? Yes. So I was like, I've been anticipating it like all evening at that point, and like that was like 2.5 hours into the game, if not a little earlier. But that dolphin is, I mean, and if you want to watch a clip, it's on Jordan's channel. It's got like 100 views and about 85 of them are mine. I've literally showed it to my entire family. Like I'm not kidding. It's legitimately the funniest damn thing that's happened to me on the internet, no doubt.
That whole game was just wild.
My sides still hurt.
Yeah, that's my favorite. That's probably my favorite one shot I've ever run. Like I don't think it's gonna be hard to tap for sure.
Amazing. Dimples?
Oh yeah, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
Honestly, like, and there were so many moments in that game because I remember I still have the Zoom background of all the Josh faces.
Oh, the Josh Simons.
Yeah. Like there was so many moments in that game that I was just like, this is one of the most ridiculous games I've ever played for charity, and I absolutely like that one stands out of my mind. So yes, absolutely, same moment.
Yeah, the only thing that I wish we had with that moment was because like Josh Simons like had covered his camera because he got John, I think, or voided or whatever it was, and so we never got to see his reaction. And like every time I watch the clip, I'm like, what is happening in Josh land? What is happening?
I love it. Amazing. And I also have to agree. Dimples. I definitely have to agree. I think the dolphins as well as the potted plants that were happening. But I also remember there was, I think it was one of the first charity streams that we did for one of the TTRPG weekends. And we had a unicorn in almost every game. And
oh my God, yeah. It was like 5 games in a row. Yeah, it was unreal. I think that's 34.
Yeah.
Is it bad that I know the numbers to Magic Surges? That might be bad.
No, that's not bad. But no, that was amazing to kind of see because it literally kept happening in every single game. I do also have to do a quick plug to Ashenworks. Care Bear Tiamat was a whole thing.
Yes.
And his Zero puppet. I forgot the name of the
Oryx.
Yeah, Oryx. Yeah. Oh, that was terrifying.
Terrifying.
By the way, if you want to like test your TPK muscle, make some homebrew monsters for your my $500 incentive is essentially a TPK because it's 7 ancient dragons. So
for sure,
go figure.
Amazing, y'all. I hate to cut it, but we got
totally cool.
But why don't we do a quick go around where you can tell everybody where we can find and support all the amazing things you're doing. Let's start again with Duval.
Hey, once again, I am and forever will be Jacob Blake Duval, King Jacob, out here on the internets. Duval! That is a really low version, but that's because I only had 1 cup of coffee. So if you want to hear me like completely like destroy your mind with my loud voice, you should come hang out on the amphitheater sometimes. And also on Waffles Maple Syrup every other Thursday for our Pathfinder 2E actual play. That's also in podcast form as well. And every Sunday over on So Many Games Twitch channel, either running Duval and Dragons, my Chrono Trigger 5e campaign, which is not really anymore Chrono Trigger because they haven't done any time traveling. They literally did time travel and they were like, we're not around. Bye. And completely, and then I wrote other things. Anywho, that's another story for another time. And there's a bunch of other stuff. Just find me on the internet, and I'll yell at you in love and kindness and stuff. Amazing. And internet hugs.
Fantastic. Dimples.
Yeah. So I'm Prince, also known as Dimples and Dice around the internet. Next thing you find me on, I'll be back on the interwebs later tonight. You can find me over at Vancouver by Night at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, where I play the Seneschal of the Camarilla and Vancouver Delve into Darkness. So that's on Vancouver Vancouver by Night. And then you can find me also over on my sister station, Rolling These 20s, at 9 p.m. Eastern Time as a storyteller for Vampire the Masquerade, Philly by Night, where they have done time traveling. And right now they jump through a time portal and they body snatch the other versions of themselves because 2 versions of you do not exist in the same space. So they are getting flashbacks of who they were before and who they are now. And those things are kind of merging together. And it has been awkward, to say the least.
Love to see it.
And then tomorrow at 11 a.m., Wayward Revelry, my D&D 5e campaign based on Wild Beyond the Witchlight, with some very interesting twists from myself because I like horror. It's not scary, but they are not the nicest things in the world. So
That's
we'll
true.
see how that plays out. And I'm on a bunch of other stuff. So make sure you follow me on Twitter for all of the updates. And yeah, glad to be here.
Amazing. Thank you both.
One last thing, Jordan. Sorry,
Sure.
I forgot to mention is on Monday night, 9 p.m. Eastern time. I'll be over on Ye Old Dragons channel, where we'll talk about a bunch. So you want to ask me more about like DMing and storytelling and stuff like that? We'll be shooting the breeze over there. So you should come hang out as well. And obviously Tuesday, me and Dimples will be hanging out, playing some D&D. So you a 5e Wall story. Too sweet me. Beep. And that was it. Cool. So I forgot to do that.
Amazing. No, it's all good. Thank you, everyone. I've been your host for today, D&D Jordan Lee, coming at you from Be Neverending. You can follow me on all the socials at D&D Jordan Lee. I just want to say a very special thank you to DimplesnDice and Duval for coming out and chatting with me about this really awesome topic, as well as Be Neverending for hosting. Once again, please go and follow Be Neverending. They are a fantastic resource, whether you're a storyteller, a player, or a DM. When it comes to character creation or trying to set the scene, they have a ton of aspects that you can use for your game. They also have some exciting news coming in the next few months, so make sure that you are following them on Twitter, Instagram, really everywhere. They're really, really fantastic. I also want to do a quick plug to Chaotic Tiefling Productions for producing for today. Did a fantastic job, so I very much appreciate that.
Yeah, you did.
Stop it.
Yeah.
It wasn't
Yeah,
just
I'm
me.
blowing up that spot.
Stop it.
Yeah, it's you.
No.
Yeah.
No.
I
Stop it.
blew that up.
Rude. We are going to go ahead and raid in just a few moments, so make sure you stay tuned. But thank you all so much for today, and we'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.
Bye.